Hey, good morning, good afternoon all. I hope you can hear me. If somebody can give me some emoji or some feedback to let me know that you can hear me and everything is okay, that would be great. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to take you through some work that we've been doing recently for a customer. And obviously the title of this session is Insight from Statements, and it's breaking down the barrier between the learner and the LRS. And I just want to quickly state from the beginning, firstly, slightly nervous, so do apologize if that comes across. Please bear with me. I don't do this very often. I'm not let out of my cave very often, so this is quite an unusual day for me to do this. So I'm looking forward to it. And then the other thing is, when I've been practicing this, my timing has gone from 5 minutes, so very, very fast, all the way through to 2 hours. So I'm hoping I can get it in the right ballpark here with 45 minutes. So if the pacing all goes a bit wonky, you'll know why. I'll try and speed up and slow down according to the clock. So yes, so let's try and not kill you all with PowerPoint, but let's make a start. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. So I'm Thomas Turrell-Croft. I'm the head of IT at Berrycloud. I've spent 9 years working with xAPI, and alongside me is my colleague. She's on mute, but she's in the same room, so she can hear you and she can speak as well. She is the project manager at Berrycloud, and she's got 7 years of experience of working with xAPI. Throughout this, and I think this is where we feel a little bit of charlatans in a way, because we're not necessarily here just to tell you something that we've done, and hopefully you can learn something from what we've done, our mistakes and the things that we've done well, but we're actually here to learn from you. So and I'm not sure if that's usual for these sessions, but we're very interested in your feedback and your experience. Katie is going to be responding to any questions that you might have in the chat during the session, and if something catches my eye, I'll address it too. And then at the end, we're going to, hopefully, if the timing is right, then we're going to have sort of 5 or 10 minutes to discuss any questions that you might have, or indeed any comments or observations about what we've done, which would be of interest to us. Right, so let's move on. So what I'm going to be showing you today is on our learning.dev platform from Berrycloud. It's a new learning platform. It supports CMI 5 and Tin Can courses. It's freely available to get started. And the piece that I'm going to be showing you today is the reporting side of it, and how we are reporting for a course and how we're reporting for a registration. And by registration, I mean a user registering for a course. So I will take you through that. So let's move on. So let's talk about the situation that we found ourselves in with the customer. So a customer came to us. They have an existing wellness course. It's an absolute monster course. It has over 10 hours of learning material. It has over 1,200 screens, and it actually has 50 questionnaires within the course itself. It was authored within an authoring tool, which you're likely to have come across and used before in the past, and it's a very large course. The people that put it together, it wasn't us, did a fantastic job to actually create such a large course within the actual authoring tool that they were using. Learners weren't intended to go through all 10 hours in one go. Yes, I'm not sure I'm going to answer those sorts of questions, but you can probably guess it's probably one of the largest authoring tools available. The actual course itself was intended to be completed over multiple weeks, so over a range of, say, 3 months. And the course itself helps people with anxiety, depression, insomnia, and stress. The customer themselves had created about 10 years ago a bespoke LMS, right back in the days when xAPI wasn't really a thing, and people were talking about tin can 0.9. So they have their own bespoke LMS. It has around 80,000 active users on it at any one time. The reporting is very, very tightly coupled to the course. And actually, it's so tightly coupled that now the LMS itself can't really be called an LMS. It's just simply an extension of the course. They couldn't actually add additional courses if they wished to, because the actual LMS is so bespoke and so coupled to one course that it would almost be impossible at this point. And to achieve the kind of reporting that they wanted to achieve, they hard coded it directly in. So that reporting was hard coded for that particular course. So it was a very tightly coupled system. So that was the situation that they came to us with, and their problem. Okay, so it was working for them up till now. Everything was fine up until now. There are a few problems. So their existing platform is very expensive to maintain and develop. The company themselves didn't want to maintain their own development team anymore. They were also developing their own, or managing their own platform on rented hardware, which again was a very expensive proposition for them. And with those kind of numbers, it was never designed for those kind of numbers. And the original development team had done a fantastic job, and the development team had done a fantastic job to actually get it to scale up to those numbers. So note the customer isn't international. So they'd done a really good job, but it had reached the end of its lifetime, this particular product. And what was forcing the issue was that the actual platform that they were residing on was being deprecated by their actual, the vendor that they were using was actually deprecating the platform that their platform was sitting on. So they had no choice in this matter. They were in the market for doing something. Change was forced upon them. So obviously, as I sort of touched on before, the customer had very specific reporting requirements. They wanted to see the progress of the users through the course, and they wanted to have a very detailed understanding of the progress of that user within the course. And they also wanted to actually have a very detailed understanding of the scores, the result scores that they were getting, and what those result scores were across all of those questionnaires. So it was very, very detailed. Well, detailed is maybe the wrong word, very specific format of reporting that they wanted. And the reports must be available in real time. They didn't want to run jobs. They didn't want to come back and get reports after so many hours. They wanted those reports available to them instantly from within the user system. And then they happen to sell the access to the system, access to this course, and the staff are actually expected to use this without any training, and they are they have absolutely no knowledge of xAPI, and they have often, in many cases, they have little or no knowledge of the course. So the actual customers, they have dedicated staff members that are trained, medically trained. They understand the clinical measures that are actually contained within the course, and they know how to interpret those results from within the course. The customer cannot afford a dedicated solution to this problem. So it's not a case of them spending the time to redevelop their existing system. That's not a route they wanted to go down. And the sort of route that we would have normally suggested to them, some sort of LRS with some sort of analytics package, which is widely available, and very good pieces of software, that wasn't the route that they wanted to take. So they wanted to know if we could come up with a solution for them. So our brief was to create a generic course registration report. They wanted us to show the progress. They wanted to show us the result scores. They wanted to show the answers and the launches. And they wanted us to generate these reports in under 60 seconds for a specific registration. They also wanted us to create a generic course report, which they wanted us to generate basically instantly. They didn't want the course report to get slower over time, depending on the number of users that they had in the system. They wanted an instant report for the performance of this course at any one time. And yes, they didn't want their staff to have any knowledge of xAPI. It was a requirement that the staff shouldn't have to know anything about xAPI. So that was our brief. It was quite challenging to us. And I will dig into what we actually did and show you. But from our perspective, we didn't want to create a bespoke reporting system for them. We would have done it if they had had the money, but they weren't talking about us building them that bespoke system. So we wanted to build something that would add value to our platform that would be usable for other customers in the future. So let me go ahead and dig in, and I do apologize if I have got passwords wrong. So I'm going to dig into the actual platform itself. So this is the learner dashboard, and I'm just going to switch roles, and I'm going to switch as the admin, and then I am going to actually go and find the particular user in question that is of interest to us. Oh, and sorry, I must state here, I must be very clear about this, that everything that you're seeing is mock data. There is no live data in here at all. The only non-mock data that you're seeing or may see is my name and my email address. But other than that, all of the email addresses in front of you, all the dates, all the results, all the usernames, all the names, totally and utterly mocked. And yeah, as they say in the movies, if it bears a resemblance to somebody, it's accidental. It's not intentional. It's randomly generated. So I'm just going to try and get this user, and unfortunately, I've forgotten the name of the user. Katie, could you help me out there? Gwen. G-W-E-N. Thank you. So Gwen is the user in question. So once I've got Gwen up, I can actually see the courses that Gwen's registered to. Only registered one. This is the course. It's not the name of the course, unfortunately. The customer doesn't actually give us the right to actually advertise their course, so I can't share that with you, I'm afraid. But this is the general idea. And once we get in, you can see immediately we get an overview of this user. So we can see that the user has progressed 100%. We can see that their last activity date. We can see the date that they actually completed this course, and we can see the number of launches that they've made for the course. This particular course is published as a tin can launched course. So one of the things that I try to differentiate between xAPI courses is the manner in which they're launched. So I might refer to a CMI5 launched course or a tin can launched course. So in this case, this is a tin can launched course. So yeah, so let me show you this. So let me show you the assessment scores. So this information here is actually being generated for us in real time, and this is coming from the LRS. So we are querying the LRS in real time for this registration, for the past and failed verbs, and we're displaying that information to the actual staff member, the clinical helper, for want of a better word. So that clinician would be looking at this patient and they'd be able to interpret this. This GAD questionnaire is a clinically valid questionnaire that is given to people that are suffering with various different psychological issues. I'm outside my area of expertise, as you probably can tell, but they would be looking at something like this, and they would be looking to see this slope downwards. They'd be looking to see an improvement of somebody during the course. Now, the important thing is, and this is where we are lucky, the questionnaire that is asked multiple times during that 10 hours of learning content uses the same activity IDs. So we're able to graph that activity ID for that report. So we're able to show that. And then the other thing that the other pieces of information here is you can see the actual activity is being displayed. So we're being able to show the name and the description of the activity. And we're able to show from the statements that we're getting back, we're able to show the maximum score. So somebody with clinical background with that sort of training is able to come in to the system. They don't need to understand the actual course. They don't need to understand the content within the course. They can simply just come and look at this report and see, hopefully, that this user is improving, and then potentially intervene depending on the results that they're seeing. So this is just one of the questionnaires within the course. There's also other questionnaires. This one is only asked once. Because it's only asked once, there's only one line. We don't graph a single line. And then we've got other questionnaires in here about managing feelings, all the sorts of things that you would probably expect in this sort of course. And you can see these graphs. PHQ-9 is another well-known measure. And again, you can see that this user has got a gradual decline. Now, that data is put here by us to demonstrate this, but the rest of the data is randomly generated, so it wouldn't be so perfect. But I wanted to not distract away from the actual concept. If it was random data, it would look a bit strange. And then we can see the questionnaire itself, or the course itself, actually asks users about their suicidal thoughts. And we can see the dates, obviously, and we get the raw score and the percentage score that we show to them. One of the things that I think might be is a kind of a stretch is that we actually show whether they've passed or failed. And in this case, pass and fail is irrelevant, but we're using, or the course, not our choice, but the course is using passed and failed statements, and in this case, pass statements. And that's why you're seeing those ticks alongside those, but it's not particularly relevant in this case. Fortunately, when I went through this, I was feeling quite happy. So you can see the course. So that's the report. And they also have the ability to see the launches. So I will show you that. It's more for auditing information, and you can see this is the sort of information that the clinician would be interested in terms of are they just clicking through and getting through the program really quickly, or are they going through at a nice pace? And of course, you can see here the user's going through at a nice pace and is using the course in an appropriate manner, so they're not rushing through. So that's a very useful piece of information for the customer. They really wanted to know that. They don't want to see somebody go through 10 hours all in one block. Let me show you the progress. So in addition, we've got the progress, and in this progress, they can see again auditing information in terms of the progress of the user, and we can also graph that information too, so you can actually get that throughput through the system. So obviously, this relies on the actual progress statements being sent by the course. Also, as I mentioned before, it requires the passes and fails, and it also requires launches. So that's that information that we're graphing in here. So let me show you something that is a little bit more familiar to you and maybe a bit more generic. So I'm going to show you myself in this case. So let me just show you myself. So this is me, and I have registered to multiple courses, and I'm going to show you the Tin Can Golf example. I guess everybody is familiar with it. It's a very well written course, very well used, and this is how that report looks here. So if I show you the answers statements here, so we can see that this is my first attempt as I've gone through it. I don't know anything about golf, so I haven't done particularly well on this, but we're able to extract from the statements the actual the name and the description. So the name and the description happen to contain the actual question. So we can actually got the question, and it's multilingual. So that would be available in all the different languages that course supported, and we would support that here too as well within that reporting view. And then obviously you can see the actual response from the actual participant that's going through this particular course. So in this case, I've answered out of the player's line of sight. I've answered on top of the ball, his ball, whereas the actual correct answer there is there for the person that's actually looking. And again, it does mean you don't actually have to have any knowledge of the course. You might not need to have any knowledge of golf to actually be able to come in and actually see how this user has actually performed on this particular course. If I want to get a feeling for what their other answers were, this is just the first answers only, but I can actually go and have a look and I can see what my other answers were that were entered on my various different attempts. So I can see these are all my other attempts that I did and what those answers were. So I can see that, and I can see this, by the way, is ranges. So you can see the correct answer is between 1 and 1. So the answer is 1, and that's correct. But because answers can contain ranges, and this is how this particular course uses it, that's why you see it as a range like that. So I'm just going to go, there's a lot of these questions, so I'm going to just go through it, and then you can see, again, we can see the actual scores, and you can see here the progression that the user has made. So we think this would be valuable information for our other customers as well, just to gain an insight into the attempts and how many times somebody has actually attempted a course, and what information that you can gain from that to understand, well, if they've taken the course 100 times or made 100 attempts before they've actually got their pass, then that might give you some insight into what they've been up to. So one thing to note here, and this is interesting, and I will come back to this in a few places, and I'm sure some questions will come up about it as well, is we look at the actual whole, all of the results, all of the statements that come from that registration. And this particular course sends the answers twice against 2 different activity IDs. So the actual reporting system can't know that. And so therefore we actually just display the actual same information twice, because it's sent twice by the course. So if you ever happen to take a look at that golf course, you'll see that it actually sends both. It sends the activity for the actual questionnaire, and then when the person has actually passed or failed, it sends it again with the activity ID of the course, for those of you who are familiar with activity IDs. And again, we've got the launches and the progress. Now, this again is, this is going to be a common theme of what I'll be talking to you about, is in this particular case, this course does not send progress statements, and therefore we cannot show that progress. So you can't see it here. We don't hide it. We're pretty clear about it. It doesn't send those progress information. So let me move on, and I'm going to show you a different course that I'm registered to. So I'm registered to this Introduction to Geology. This is, again, another well-written course, really good sample for those of you that are getting into CMI 5. And I'm part of the CMI 5 working group, or I'm a member of the CMI 5 working group. There's no qualifications. If anybody wants to pop along, we would be very glad to see you, and please join. So this is a CMI 5 course, and I just want to show you basically the same view. So from a CMI 5 perspective, CMI 5 course is comprised of multiple units, and so a course is broken down into multiple units. And this is one of the Project Catapult courses, which is very useful, and anybody that is actually working on an LMS or in integrating with an LRS and looking to CMI 5, I highly recommend these sample courses. They're very useful. So this is how the report would look for this particular course, and you can see, I can't remember what my progress is, but I can go through these, and I can see on a unit by unit basis exactly what I've showed you for the actual the anxiety depression course, and also for the golfing course. So let me just zip down to the quiz, and I can see, yeah, in this case, I have taken the quiz, but I actually, if I go and look at some of the others like dating methods, you can see I haven't started it and I have no progress yet. And certainly, again, I can see the same thing, just to potentially overemphasize this, but I can see the answers here at this point here. And again, I can see, I think I can see, yeah, my progress statement. So again, because it was completed all in one go, there is no chart for this. So I'm going to come out of there, and unfortunately I am slightly my last run through, I left my user in a situation that I didn't want to be in. So let me just view this Introduction to Geology course. I'm just going to archive it for 1 second because I am going to re-register for it. So I've archived that, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to register for this. Okay, so this is slightly off topic, but I just wanted to demonstrate to you the real-time nature of the reporting, just so that you can see that this is not one I've prepared earlier and it took hours and hours and hours. I want you to be aware that this is actually being done real time. So I'm going to actually start this course. This is the Introduction to Geology course, and I'm going to exit that one because it wasn't that particular module that I was interested in. So I'm going to go through the curriculum, and I'm going to find the quiz that appears at the bottom. So this is the quiz, and I have this very helpful button here. So I'm going to select the correct answers, and I'm just going to get it ever so slightly wrong and submit those answers. And one of the things, again, this is slightly off topic, but one of the very useful things about CMI5, which I think is very useful and everybody should be aware of when authoring courses, is that it now has the ability to provide, the LMS has the ability to provide the course with a return URL. Fantastic. So when I press exit the course, this is actually going to return me right back to the LMS, to the point that the LMS wanted the course to return to. So, I failed that. So I'm going to resume again. And I am going to, it doesn't really matter if I restart from the beginning or bookmark, there's only one slide. So let's do the correct answers. I will only do this one more time. And let me just get it slightly more wrong this time. So I got 40. And then for the last time, I promise you guys, let's restart from the beginning, and I'm going to do correct answers. And I'm going to submit those answers. So now I've actually achieved a passing score. So I'm going to exit this course. Now, from the user's perspective, the user has the ability to go in and look at their own user reports. So I can see, yeah, that was my accidental click where I started the Introduction to Geology. I started the first unit. See my progress was 100%. You can see that I've completed and passed it. This particular course has the requirement that the unit must be completed or passed. So, and when I talk about completed, that's a completed statement or a passed statement. So that's what the completion criteria is for these. You can see I'm 100%, and you can see how many launches I've done. Although this particular course, even though it says that I've passed, it doesn't actually send any score. It doesn't have to, it's not required. So let's have a look at the quiz. And from the user's perspective, I can see my results for the quiz. And this is what I get as a user. Obviously, so if I switch hats and go in as the admin and look at the admin role now, and I go and find myself as a user, I should be able to see this particular course. And if I go to the quiz, hopefully, I should be able to see my answers. So you can see these are my answers. This is the first answers only, but I can change this so I can see all of them. So I can see all of these answers, and then I can see my scores again. So you can see how this is able to report in real time. So in real time, we're able to get access to this information. So I think the next thing that I want to show you in terms of demonstration is the actual course itself. The customer was very keen on understanding the performance of the course, obviously, so that they can make changes to the course and increase the effectiveness. So let's have a look at that particular course. So here we go. So it's not as comprehensive a report as you would get for an individual registration. Remember, registration is for a user for a course. So this is just a report for the course. We can get an idea of the actual average satisfied. We can get an idea of the actual completion, and we can get an idea of the average progress. So we've got that information available to us. We can see how many people are registered. We can see how many launches there are and how many people have finished. So yeah, and I must emphasize this is test data, so please do not draw any conclusions. I have no idea whether somebody would want only 4.4% of people to complete a 10-hour course or not. I don't know, but that information would be available. That might be normal. That might be what they're expecting. That might not be. But that information, therefore, is available. let me show you the introduction to geology. So we can now see this broken down by unit, because remember, this is a CMI 5 course. So we've got the same information available to us. And you saw I archived the course. That's what we would call a quit. So you can see that quit. And you can see the finishes as well, and the number of launches, number of registrations. And we can now see on a unit by unit basis how this particular course is actually behaving and how people are using it. So we can really dig into this information, and we can see this information here. And we can get all the way down, and let's see. Yeah, so something like this, we can see a bit more information about what's going on in the average progress here. Let's get to the actual quiz, which I believe is at the end. So, okay, so all of our learners have actually completed the quiz. So we've got 100% progress. We can actually get the durations from that. It's one of the things that is actually in the CMI 5 spec. So we can actually say what the total learning time or the total completion time is. We can actually calculate the average completion time, how long it's taking people on average, excuse me. And obviously then we can see the passes and fails as an average too, and how many people are passing and failing this course. So, okay, so I think I have probably run out of time. Is there anything that I should have covered, Katie, that I haven't done so?
I don't think so. There's one question.
Yep.
The second to last one about customizing the reporting backend with HTML5 and JavaScript library.
Okay. Yeah. So we don't have the ability to customize the reporting. This is very much off-the-shelf reporting, and I think, and my experience isn't comprehensive here, and probably people in this room have more experience of this than I do. I think there's a lot of tools out there that give a lot more insight into the actual usage than we do, and I make no bones about that. And I think there are other tools that are better. And I'm not sure that we will ever go down that route, because I think the people that have already done it are so far ahead. I don't think that we would be able to catch them up. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think we would be pointing potential customers to those systems and using the interoperability of xAPI in order to forward statements to something more akin to a business analytics tool that would actually be able to give people who actually were passionate about and understood xAPI the ability to drill down and potentially create custom reports. But it's a very interesting question, and I would really like to understand it more. So if you did have the time to drop me an email, I'd be really interested in learning a bit more about what you're thinking there, and potentially how we can improve. So I'm going to come out of here. I'm not sure if there's anything else that anybody has as a question that I can potentially answer. I don't have the answers to all the questions. So maybe one thing that I can show, which is a bit more technical for the people that are interested in the room. So let me get to my user, and it was Gwen, wasn't it? And again, let me have a look. Let's have a look at Gwen. So I'm just going to turn on inspect element, and I'm going to look at the network console. So for those of you that are familiar with xAPI, this might be interesting to you. So let's have a look. So what happens when we get the assessment scores? So I'll just clear this out. So let's have a look at the assessment scores. So what's happening in the background? So lots of activity. So we're making a request to the LRS, and we're making a request to the LRS for the registration and for the verbs that we discussed. And I can show you that here, so we can see the actual result that we get back. And I can show you those headers here, so you can actually see, although it is somewhat of a large mess, but you can effectively see this is the verb past and this is the registration that we're interested in. We get more than one statement back, we get many statements back, and you can see in here we actually have a more token, which means that we have to actually request additional statements, and it'll keep making more and more requests to the LRS until the LRS actually returns without any more token, and then it knows that it's got all the statements available. And then at that point, the client is able, once it's gathered all the information from the LRS, at that point, the client application, the JavaScript client application, is able to display the graphs that you're actually able to see here. And obviously the other endpoint, the other xAPI endpoint that's of interest here is the activities endpoint. So making a request to the activities endpoint in order to actually get the information that is then displayed here on the screen. Is there anything else? I think I need to scroll.
There was a question about CMI5 profile.
CMI5 profile.
Do we create a specific profile or use the CMI5 profile?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, so let's actually, I think one of the things that I didn't do is talk about the lessons learned. So let's get onto that, because that actually covers that. So yes, it is our own internal LRS. About 12 months ago, we developed an LRS. We went out to the industry and we talked to some of the big players. We were new. We'd done a lot of work with xAPI and LRSs before, but not on our own. We went out into the industry and we said, hey, we've got the fastest LRS that we're aware of. And the industry went, so what? and we were somewhat shocked. And now we know why we built one of the fastest LRSs, because it enables us to do reports like this in real time. So lessons learned, and I will get on to the profile in a second. So yes, LRS performance, absolutely. If you're going to do this yourself, you are going to need an LRS that is going to be able to respond to the requests in a very short order. You're going to need a conformant LRS too. You need to make sure that you're gathering all the statements that are being sent to you by the actual courses that are out there that you're supporting. So you absolutely can't drop statements. So you definitely need a conformant LRS. xAPI, one of the things that we really learned is partitioning the data by registration is really useful. So it's a really good way of actually grabbing the data from the LRS. So if you're familiar with the statement resource in the xAPI specification, have a look at the registration. If your LMS, and again, I'd encourage you, if you're looking at creating an LMS at the moment, or you're working with an LMS at the moment, definitely take a look at the think about having a concept of registration, because it's a great way of partitioning the data. And yeah, so the other lesson, to come back to the point in the questions, well supported, documented profiles, xAPI profiles, absolutely key. ADLNet are doing a great job at the moment with some profiles, and CMI5 being one of them. And I know they're looking to help people publish their own profiles and get those profiles into common usage. But absolutely, I think it's a thing that the xAPI community really needs to look at, because something like this, a tool like ours, a generic reporting tool, lives and dies by people actually using CMI5 as a profile or other well-known profiles. So yeah, definitely would encourage any vendors of authoring tools, or indeed anybody that's actually authoring their own courses, to actually look at what somebody else is doing there. I know it's tempting to invent your own thing, but I think getting on board with CMI5, supporting that working group and supporting ADLNet in that, I think is a really useful thing to be doing right now. Oh yeah, the other thing that we learned about xAPI, not everybody shares our passion. It wasn't a competitive advantage when we went out into the marketplace and started talking to customers. Huge shock to us. Nobody was interested in the fact that we had a conformant LRS. Nobody was interested in the fact that we had an LRS that could crunch through the actual test suite in less than 15 seconds. Nobody cared. Huge shock to us. And that was probably us being a bit naive. But the thing that the customers were actually interested in was the power of xAPI. And I think that's something that that we weren't actually talking about. We were talking about conformance, and what we should have been talking about is what xAPI does for you right now that is better than SCORM or other e-learning standards. Not that there's anything wrong with SCORM, it's taken us a long way, but xAPI does do a lot more. And then, yes, the other thing that we discovered is 90% of our customers don't need a business intelligence tool, and that was a shock to us. Yes, some of them absolutely do, but for a lot of people, just simply seeing a graph of the actual results is enough for them, and that's all they wanted.
Last question.
Yeah. Is it because customers don't know the value of xAPI? Yeah,
more in the UK.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, our perspective is Europe and the UK, and it's completely unknown here. So we know customers, and indeed this customer that we're talking about here in this particular case study was using xAPI, and they weren't really aware of it. So yes, completely ignorant of it. I don't have any solutions, but yeah, I think customers really need to understand and see. And I think it's one of the things, just to be a little bit promotional, I'm hoping that people will be able to use our platform, and with that say, look, this is what a trial license can do, and this is what you can see, and is this what you're after for your courses and for your learners? And I'm hoping that will help drive things forward, but maybe I'm being somewhat naive in that. I think, unless anybody has any other questions. Oh, right, okay. Yeah, I think the big thing is obviously the US military, which is the difference in America. Although I do know that the Department of Defense in the UK are very interested in CMY5, and have been taking part in some of the CMY5 sessions. So that might change too.
So 3 more minutes.
3 more minutes. Oh my goodness me! So I think I sort of I've dried up after 42 minutes, but I rate that as a success. So I don't know if anybody else.
Well, we can. So we can end there.
So I think unless anybody else has anything else they wish to discuss, or anything else like that, I think.
Cool. We can wrap up.
Yeah, I think the last thing to do is thank you all for your time. I'm very, very appreciative of it. And if you would like to drop either myself or Katie an email or get in touch in some other manner, we would really appreciate your thoughts and feedback. So yes, thank you very much for your time. Have a great weekend. Starts now for us in the UK. So enjoy the next 5 hours or whatever you have to go. So we'll let you know how it went. Take care. Thank you. Bye now.